Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show, and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice, and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Welcome to the Shabby Detective, yet another Columbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Chris Ashew.
Phoenix. Paul Williams music in this fucking movie, too. It's not the only time Paul Williams and Phoenix show up in the same movie, folks.
We're kind of in a mid-season break here. We're about to go to...
special, all right.
Well, yeah, it's very special. Very special episode of the ABC Family movie. We were talking about Griffin and Phoenix, also called A Love Story or Today is Forever. It originally aired February 27th, 1976. This is a TV movie directed by Daryl Duke, written by John Hill, starring Peter Falk and Joe Clayburgh. And the reason why we're talking about it is because this was a Peter Falk joint, and this was a rare TV movie for Peter Falk. So, yeah, Chris, I'm curious, what did you think of Griffin and Phoenix?
That was fun. It's of a time. I would say that. It feels very much of a time. The way the movie is made feels very of a place. It comes out a year before the movie that it feels the most, including Joe Clayburgh's performance feels very Annie Hall adjacent. She almost sounds like Diane Keaton. Joe Clayburgh does if you close your eyes and squint really hard. She kind of sounds like Diane Keaton. So it's like Annie Hall, but like The Fault in Our Stars. The Fault in Our Annie Hall is kind of what it feels like, because it's two faded lovers who both have cancer. This is not the kind of movie I would gravitate towards outside of watching it because Peter is in it. I think that's probably the first thing to get out of the way here. Outside of that, I think Peter Falk is great. Jill Clayburgh is great. I think the movie's kind of a drag. I think the movie just kind of spins its wheels for most of the movie. I think it's fine. You can find it on YouTube if you really want to watch it. Literally, there's like 2 or 3 copies of it on YouTube. And there's a remake, which I watched a little bit of the remake, and it seems fine. I don't know. I mean, again, speaking of a movie that's of a time and place, Dermot Mulroney and Amanda Peet in the mid-2000s, talk about your, like, C-level C-listers. Like, Jesus H. Christ. Dermot Mulroney and Amanda Peet, not your first choices, huh, guys?
More than Annie Hall, what it reminds me of is the film Sweet November. Now, it was a 1968 film, and then they remade it in 2001. So it's kind of funny that we've got this 1976 film that's remade in 2006. And the remake of Sweet November is the one I'm more familiar with. That's the one with Charlize Theron and Keanu Reeves. And Keanu Reeves is this uptight a-hole businessman guy, and he falls in love with this, I don't want to say manic pixie dream girl, but she's somewhat there. She's definitely the one that helps liberate him from being an asshole kind of thing. And then as he falls in love with her, he finds out that she's terminal and is going to die. And it's called Sweet November. Oh, sorry, spoilers. It's called Sweet November because they just have this 1 month together, basically.
If the character has cancer in a movie, there's a 50% chance that they're dying before the final frame.
But that's the twist here. Griffin and Phoenix both have cancer. Crazy. She's got leukemia, he's got lung cancer, and together they make magic. Was Dermot Mulroney married in the 2006 remake?
Don't think so.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Like the weird hanger-on from the 70s where it's like, I have a wife and kids. Like, what? Again, there's part of it where it's like her coming to terms with that, but there's not as much of that as you would think. Like, it really not a whole lot, which is like, again, in my mind, speaks to the time and place that the original movie was made. I'm not saying people were laissez-faire in the 70s.
It was much more accepting of an audience to see this guy who is with this shrewish wife and these 2 jackass kids that don't want to go camping with him. They don't want to pay attention. They just want to go in and watch television. They don't want to look at the constellations. Constellations are gross, Dad. I don't get that one at all. I don't see what's gross about constellations.
What's the Bechdel test for children characters? Because for whatever it is, these characters in this film don't pass it. The children are just bizarrely written. If I were Peter Falk, I too would not want to be with this fucking family of people. I'd want to step the fuck out on these people. I mean, that's the thing. His wife seems awful. Like, his wife does seem awful. That's the thing. In the remake, it's like, why even have that if you're just going to have her be this, like, shrewish, annoying nag? It's like, just don't even have it. Like, you can have this guy have cancer. And that's where the remake goes. The remake just goes, he has cancer. Like, that's it. He just has cancer. There's no kids, there's no wife, there's no other life this is getting in the way of. It's just he has cancer. And I think in my mind, that's all it really needed to be. It doesn't make good use of the family storyline because it, again, just kind of seemingly gets in the way in my mind anyways.
It's also strange because the family stuff is presented as a flashback. Like we start in what I think is the present, and then I think we go into like a few days later, like he's trying to put up this tent for Yosemite, but then we see the whole diagnosis. So I think the cancer stuff is more in the future. And then we flash back to the camping trip where he just leaves them, like puts up a sign, like, I can't take this anymore. Cause she put up a sign, like the dog needs walking or something. And he's just like, oh my God, like I can't keep stopping or whatever. And then he does his little sign that takes off on them, abandons his family, goes to see his brother George, I think it is, who gives him some money and says, hey, go out and spend this. But like the trip back and stuff, it's like him leaving them. I think he knows by that point that he's got cancer. So, yeah, it's strange. Like the timeline seems very strange.
Yeah, I don't like the narrative device that they use to tell the story in this film. I think it's a little muddled. I don't think it works as well as they think it does. And look, it's a TV movie. They have an hour and a half, so it's not like they don't have plenty of room, but I don't understand kind of telling the story in media res.
I know what it is. I know he's driving, then he has a flash back to the cancer diagnosis, but I don't know when he got the cancer diagnosis. So that's where it's a little like, what? I'm sure that cancer diagnosis is what made him want to do this trip and all these things. But it just, the flashback to me, like I said, it felt like it was in the future or something. So, but it was in the past and we are in the present at the beginning. And yeah, like you said, in media res, him trying to set up this tent, it's almost like Peter Falk is drunk during part of this. Like just the way he's so childish and the way that he is talking about, like, do you want to see my mosquito bites? And then he eventually like walks out into this water and stuff. And I'm like, what? Okay, I understand that you have this diagnosis of terminal cancer, but you're just being a real weirdo and asshole, basically. And he's an asshole through a lot of this movie, I think.
I was going to ask, how do you feel about this conceit of you are an asshole and the having of the cancer allows you to get away with that? Because this is a trope. This is like a filmic trope. I mean, I have known people with cancer. You have known people with cancer. I'm not saying everybody who has cancer is a nice person, but I've never met someone with cancer who acts like a complete fucking asshole, like characters in movies sometimes tend to do. And there is that time, like, where, there's a time of grieving and acceptance. Like, I understand that, but prolonged assholery is like, that's a one-way ticket to getting people to not feel bad for you. To be like, well, just because you have cancer doesn't mean I have to give a shit that you're acting like a fucking asshole. It's somewhat unrealistic, but it is like a film trope in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's like the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross effect where it's, denial, assholery, frustration.
Right, I forgot about that, the third step there.
After he finds out that he's got cancer, he kind of goes a little wild, like moves away from them. And then once he finds Phoenix, and I guess it's a weird title, Griffin and Phoenix, obviously two mythological things. The Phoenix rises from the flames, so you would think she would survive or something, but she's the first to go.
Well, she's the only one to go.
Well, I think he's going to die pretty soon at the end of the movie.
I don't understand why the movie cops out the way that it does. Like, I get that, you could just assume that this is where the movie goes, but I don't feel like the way that their story is told, or frankly, that the story between the two of them is that interesting enough to tell it. And I guess in 1976, and, looking around, best I can tell, this is kind of like the first of these kinds of stories. Like, the characters both have cancer stories. But is this story that memorable enough to remake it? I don't know. I mean, again, it was a TV movie. So in a lot of ways, it checks the boxes of the things that I always talk about, where it's like, let's not remake things that are eminently memorable, but remake things that are middling. I think my issue is looking at what Peter Falk has done outside of Columbo. This is nowhere near as good as the last thing we talked about. And that's the problem. Maybe if I didn't have that as a frame of reference, I'd be like, this is a fun little lark for Peter Falk. But honestly, this just kind of feels like, I wouldn't say a waste of time, but it's so vignette focused and vignette centric. And it all seems to be the same thing where it's like these two people that are so straight-laced, they never did anything crazy, and now they're doing crazy stuff, and they're getting into trouble, and they're breaking the law and being scofflaws. Like, okay. But they did it 5 fucking times. It gets old after a while. It really gets old. And we talk about that with Columbo. You need to stop beating the dead horse. And this movie just beats a dead horse to death. At one point, they sneak into a movie. At one point, it's like, who fucking cares? We get it. You're being a little bit, ne'er-do-wells because you're dying. And that's probably more realistic than acting like an asshole.
I think we've both worked retail, so somebody coming in and just, taking my go-karts if I'm running the go-kart track, or breaking into the theater. I mean, obviously I was an usher, but he would never take the person to the manager. You just ask him to leave. You don't care about that stuff. The police chase and doing the graffiti on the water tower and stuff. I'm like,
that's this movie's iconic imagery, I guess, is the water tower. That's the iconic moment. That's the love means I'm never having to say I'm sorry moment of this movie, is the water tower, because it's in the remake and in the original.
I kind of like that they are adults in this, and that they don't make any fuss when it comes to hey, let's have sex. It's all right. And also, this is the 70s. We're not going to like hide that stuff. And also, it's very acceptable in the 70s. Like, oh, yeah, you're having an affair, but your wife is a shrew. So it's really okay.
I like that logic, I guess. That logic seems sound in 1976. I don't know. Strange, albeit very flawed logic. Is a movie like this something that makes it out of the 70s? Because this kind of movie, I don't know, seems like the 80s leaves these kinds of movies behind just based on like the casualness of the sex between the characters.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they had to make some adjustments. Obviously, you saw with the remake and everything, like, oh, we got to get rid of the wife. So it's basically him not cheating on somebody else. I think of other cancer movies where it's just like, oh, yeah, like me, what was that, Earl and the Dying Girl and those the kind of things. I was just like, okay, yeah. Or like one of the most famous, and I think this was a TV movie as well, one of the most famous cancer movies was Brian's Song. The one with James Caan and Billy D. Williams, and that was fucking fantastic. But I mean, when I was a kid, I'll be honest with you, Chris, I was terrified of getting cancer because I remember my folks watched a TV movie. It wasn't Griffin Phoenix, but it was a TV movie, and I don't remember who was in it. If it was like Michael Onkeen or Patrick Duffy or just some random white dude from the 70s, and I just remember him. I guess maybe he was getting like chemotherapy or something, and he was just screaming about how much pain he was in and that it felt like his blood was on fire. And I'm like a little
Jesus fucking Christ, bro.
Hearing this from like my bedroom, because I could always hear the TV when my folks were watching the TV, and I'm just like terrified. What the hell's going on? And it was like, oh yeah, this guy has cancer. Yeah. So like I was never like somebody to say their prayers before bed, but it was just like, oh gosh, I hope I never get cancer. Just like that was like my thing when I was younger. It's just like, I can't get cancer. I don't want that, because it was just so fucking scary.
I was always worried about buildings falling on me because I saw a documentary as a child about that hotel in Kansas City collapsing. You remember that? You know what I'm talking about? The lobby of the hotel? Yeah. So I always terrified of that, which is a lot stupider of a thing to be terrified. Cancer. Buildings falling on you is a lot different than cancer. Cancer can strike anywhere.
They'll both kill you, at least
that's true.
According to the movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the guy from 50/50 survived, but that's about it as far as I know.
Isn't that what is that, Seth Rogen, Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie? Yay. I'm not the biggest made-for-TV movie. Made-for-TV movies in me are like, I don't know. I have a very mixed opinion on them because I've seen some really good ones and I've seen some really bad ones. This is a pretty good one. This is kind of, I would say, in the top 25%.
I think a lot of that is thanks to Daryl Duke. He definitely knew what he was doing. He directed one of my favorite movies, which was The Silent Partner. Really enjoyed that. And that was 2 years after this, I think. He had done theatrical as well as TV, but he did a lot of work in television. And then he would actually go on to direct an episode of Columbo in the 90s. Murder Can Be Hazardous to Your Health.
I'm assuming that's that's movies.
Yeah, one from 91. Yeah, they were more TV movies than episodes, really. But you can call them an episode just as easily, because what we've been watching obviously feels a lot of times like, and they would actually be released to movie theaters. They feel like movies sometimes.
I'm really curious is when will the Columbo episodes start feeling like TV movies? Because those Perry Masons feel like TV movies.
I really think that it's the ABC years that feel like the TV movies. Like that's when you really feel that difference versus what we've been watching. I think all the way up to season 8, I want to say, feels like television, and feels like TV episodes, or feels like real movies versus the TV moviness of the ABC years in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s.
I have a lot of trepidation going into those episodes, obviously. Because, again, like, it's not that I have some sort of vendetta or some sort of slant against TV movies, but there's something that feels, the quality of this show feels better because it's a TV show as opposed to a TV movie, because the conventions and the expectations are different. And once this becomes a TV movie show, I'm assuming it will also feel a little bit different
those ABC ones have such a different feel to it.
I'm hopeful because Peter Falk is such a gifted actor that I believe it'll carry it through. This movie, I think, is case in point. He carries this movie for the most part. It really is him. Like, he's the reason I enjoyed this as much as I did, because I think, again, like, this is not a movie made for me at all.
Well, I'm curious what you thought of Jill Clayburgh, because I was looking at her filmography today, and like, as a child of the 70s, she was everywhere. Like movies like Semi-Tough or An Unmarried Woman, or what's the incest movie that she made? Luna, I think. But like, she was just, I'm dancing as fast as I can. She was such a big presence. And it was strange because looking at her filmography, it's like, yeah, she kept acting after the 70s and did tons of roles. But like, for me, she was like one of the consummate 70s actresses. It's like, your point about Annie Hall, it feels like Diane Keaton was able to escape the 70s for a long time, First Wife's Club, Smother, or like some of those things where it's like, oh yeah, she's still a very viable actress. Whereas with Jill Clayburgh, obviously she passed away, 2010, I think it was, but
From cancer,
yeah, Jesus Christ. But it feels like after the 70s, we kind of lost her a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I went and looked, and yeah, it seems like you said her story is sad because, again, like, she passed away in 2010, but her daughter, Lily Robb, is a fantastic actress who's been in American Horror Story, a whole bunch of things. So she's a great actress. So at least there's that. But yes, to your point, like, I don't think she really has I don't know. She didn't escape the kind of 70s, but she had a pretty big career in the 70s. It's not a bad thing. Better to have a career in the 70s than no career at all. But it does seem like, post the 70s, her kind of things that she worked on were not as high profile as what she had worked on in the 70s or even in the early 80s.
Oh, you just like Lily Robb because she was in No Reservations.
Is that the movie with Aaron Eckhart?
Yes, that's the movie with that. I was thinking of Kitchen Nightmares because both of those have titles of Anthony Bourdain things.
Yeah, different thing entirely. Still in the food world, though.
No Reservations.
I love that show.
Oh, me too. God, that was the best.
I know. Can we talk about Peter Falk as a romantic lead? How do you feel as Peter Falk as a romantic lead? Because this is now the second time we've had this. And how do you feel about him opposite Jill Clayburgh?
I think the chemistry between him and Clayburgh is good. And I do like those moments where he's, hey, I know this great taco place. And she's like, well, that's great. So do I. And, I'm not going to get a taco with you. You're not going to get in my pants. Just keep dreaming, buddy. But I like those little things like him in the restaurant waiting for her and knowing that she's there and sticking his tongue out at her. And like their banter back and forth, I thought was really nice. And I know some of the remake quoted the movie directly, same screenplay. I think they just punched it up a little for the 2006. But when she's like, we don't know anything about each other. We don't even know, each other's first names and stuff. And he was like, oh, I was just about to ask about that. And I'm like, yeah, I like his very like nonchalant approach to things. Other than the assholeness, I think that he works well in this, which I'm surprised by because I don't tend to think of Peter Falk as Columbo. I don't tend to think as Peter Falk as the romantic lead, and especially because he's short, he's kind of funny looking, he's got the glass eye and stuff, but the motherfucker's charming.
That's where I was trying to get you to in my mind was he's a very charming guy. And I think that's where a lot of it lies, is that he's got that kind of smirk, that little grin to him. And, you can see the gears turning. And, while he might not be Columbo, he still has that, the wryness of Columbo. He still has that, I think, just as Peter Falk. And so I like that about him. And I think he has that in this role. I mean, again, like you said, he's charming. And I think Columbo is charming as well. I think that's the point. I think to your point, I just don't see him as a romantic lead. And it's hard for me, even though he did a pretty good job as the romantic lead, to see him as the romantic lead.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a stretch, but kind of like this mismatched couple a little bit too. I mean, she's gorgeous, but she's not like this crazy drop dead beauty. He's not this handsome sweep you off your feet type of guy. So to me, they kind of work well as a couple.
I like her in this movie. I like her opposite him. I think that their chemistry is great. I think Jill Clayburgh hosted an episode of SNL. Like, she's not an unknown, for fuck's sake. She hosted an episode of SNL the year before this TV movie came in. I think her and Columbo or Peter Falk balance one another out rather well. I do think that her character, there's like a little bit of, it could have been she's mentally ill of the character of it all. There's a little bit of that, I feel like, but it's supposed to be, she's overwhelmed by her diagnosis. But you could almost see the Gina Rowlands of it all from the last movie where it's like, she's a bit much for him to handle. And I think that is the case, and we get the very stereotypical, I'm going to leave, don't find me ending. You could see her character get to that point, but I don't know. I think him and her together are really good for this kind of.
I think if it wasn't them on screen, I would get very bored very quickly. I mean, as it is, I'm like, well, you could probably lose a half an hour of this and it wouldn't be too bad. Like this afternoon when I rewatched this movie, I basically fast forwarded to after he leaves his wife and is in the death and dying class. And I'm like, okay. And it's so funny that I don't know if it was something to do with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross or what it was, but like, I mean, my mom went to community college for a while when I was a kid, and then eventually went to Eastern and got her BA and then MSW, Masters of Social Work. But when she was going to the community college to build up those credits, I remember her taking a death and dying class. And so I was just like, wow, that must have been a thing in the 70s. Like, I don't know if they still offer death and dying classes, but it just seemed like the most natural thing in the world while I'm watching this movie from 1976. Just like, well, of course they had death and dying classes. That was such a thing to do in the 70s. I don't know why.
There seems something very 70s, Bermuda Triangle, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, like, I don't know, the being more open and accepting to alternative ideas, I feel like is very much front and center of the 70s. I lost my mantra, to speak of Annie Hall. Yeah.
And another co-star of Peter Falk's.
I don't like this as much as the last movie we watched, but I also like the last movie we watched because it was a little bit more serious. This movie is a little bit more fun and flight of fancy.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. 100% agree. It was a lark. It was interesting to watch. It's always interesting to watch what Peter Falk is up to. But yeah, I wasn't just like, oh, wow, this was the best thing ever, or even this was the worst thing ever. I was just kind of like, okay, that's what that was. Next.
Well, and that's the thing. I think when you play a character as singular as Columbo, it's hard for me to see you as anything else unless that thing that you're playing makes a strong case for being as distinct or memorable as Columbo. This character doesn't do that, like, at all. He's playing sort of himself. Like, again, he's just playing like a guy. Like, he's playing himself in the 70s. Like, there's nothing specifically unique about his character other than he has cancer. Other than that, he's just supposed to be a guy in the 70s.
Yeah, and that neither one of them has to worry about work anymore was a little interesting too.
Because of cancer, man.
Yeah, I mean, she's like, it's pretty great. She's like, I'm just running up fucking credit cards. And he's like, oh, my brother's a soft touch. I'm like, oh, okay. Both of those things work. She's just running up those credit cards and doesn't really care that she's going to get hit with that bill because she's not going to be around for it.
I like that as well. I find that rather amusing. But I mean, again, if you're in that same situation, why wouldn't you?
God, as long as I knew that they weren't going to go after my loved ones after I was gone, yeah, I'd just run up those bills all the way.
That's right. We're eating out every night. And then we're eating dinner too.
I'm trying to remember when you and I and Mark Begley recorded the episode of Wake Up Heavy about murder by death, because I don't think we had started working on this when we did. January 12th, 2023.
I have Friday, January 6th, 2023.
Okay. I was just going off of the RSS feed.
Yeah. I have Friday, January 6th, 2023.
And then when it comes to the Columbo cast, when did we start that one? First episode came out. Okay, January 16th, 2022. Okay, so you were already familiar with Falk at that time. All right. I couldn't remember if that was the case.
And their Chevy Chase podcast art is fucking insanity. Insane. That's insane, man.
Isn't it crazy what they can do now? So, yeah, and some person was like, I don't want to listen to Chevy Chase. I'm like, it's not fucking a Chevy Chase talking. It's about Chevy Chase.
Was Chevy Chase talking?
Get some AI voice going and train it to speak like Chevy Chase.
Yep. With his patois and everything.
So we won't be back next month talking about Murder by Death. I just wanted to let people know that if they want to hear us talk about that, that's over on Wake Up Heavy, which is available at weirdingwaymedia.com. But instead, next month we're coming back to talk about an Elaine May film, Mikey and Nicky, which reunites, well, for this film and for our purposes, reunites Mr. Falk and Mr. Cassavetes. So that should be interesting. And there's a whole host of great actors in here. Ned Beatty, William Hickey, Sanford Meisner. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I've never seen this film before. I don't know if I've ever, other than trying to make it through Ishtar, I don't think I've ever seen an Elaine May film before either. So I'm very curious to check this out.
I just like the name Ishtar.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, right? And what a movie it is. Until we come back to talk about Mikey and Nicky, Chris, what are you working on these days?
It's a podcast over at weirdingwaymedia.com. That's where this show and all the other shows I work on can be found. Now, what about you, Mike?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, other than the one show that you and I do with our friend Richard Haddam, which is called Rankin' on Bond, which is available at both of our Patreons. That's patreon.com/culturecast and patreon.com/projection booth. And every month we put up a new episode where we're talking all about the man who's all about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is what they used to call him. So always fun to talk about that. And we are starting to move into the Timothy Dalton era. That'll be over before we know it. And then we'll be into that Pierce Brosnan era. And at least I'm really looking forward to talking about Goldeneye. I got to track down the writer of Griffin and Phoenix. John Hill, also wrote a movie I saw way too many times when I was a kid, Heartbeats, the Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters as robots movie.
Heartbeats.
Yes, another Alan Arkush joint, the man who brought us Caddyshack 2.
Oh my God.
Have you not seen this one?
No.
Oh boy. Yeah, it's something, man. It is something. And I saw that probably 4 or 5 times at the theater. Great score by John Williams.
It has a Randy Quaid in it.
Yes, sir. And Kenneth McMillan, Baron Harkonnen himself. Well, until we come back to talk about Mikey and Nicky, I'm super glad that people are checking this out. Please continue to listen, and we'll be back in 2 months with some more Columbo. But until then, I hope you enjoy these little diversions that we're doing.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week, and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.